This is Grammy from Grammy's Country Cookin'. This is Quick Cooks with Grammy, Episode 1, as specially requested by my son living in California. Now let's get cooking. Today we are going to be making taco seasoning mix. This is something that I have recreated over many years, and something my family truly enjoys, so you don't have to go to the store and buy a ready-made packet of taco seasoning. You can make your own and store it in the refrigerator, and it's ready to roll whenever you need it. It also is really good in a lot of other things. You can use it in homemade chili. You could add some to goulash. You could even use it possibly as a seasoning for meat. Before we start with the actual recipe, I was going to go through a little tutorial on storage containers. Now when you're done making this mix, you're going to be storing it in the refrigerator, so you need to have a container of some kind, and it will keep in there for a long time. It's always ready to go. Now, glass is always a preferred container. It doesn't absorb the odors, and it doesn't have plastic in it, which a lot of people is kind of a controversial subject as to leaching into the product you're having in plastic containers. Now, these are a variety of things that you could use for possible containers. This and this are canning jars, various sizes of canning jars, a wide mouth, a regular mouth, that could possibly be used. Now, some other ideas, which I'm notoriously known for saving jars. These two were previously contained, one had spaghetti sauce in it, one had salsa in it. And I take off the labels, clean them, put them through the dishwasher. The nice thing about these two jars is that they actually even have measurements printed aside the jar, cup measurements, and this one has ounce measurements. In a pinch, you could actually even use these to measure out liquid ingredients. This is a former ready-made gravy container jar that's also been used before. And this little container actually came with horseradish in it. But it will make a really good repurposing of these containers. It can be used as a storage container for several things. Another thing I'm infamously known for are my homemade freezer jams and jellies. A lot of these jars get re-put to use for things like that. So you don't necessarily have to have a full-blown canning jar with canning lids and rings. You can come up with other ideas. Now today I am going to be using this little container. This is pretty much the perfect size for what I'm going to be making. Now, to make the seasoning mix, we begin with 2 tablespoons of chili powder. Okay, chili powder right here. Chili powder. Now this recipe is not, and it doesn't necessarily have to be an exact science. And as you're making this, once you've made this, you can adjust and adapt the different ingredients to the taste for yourself and or your family. So we have 2 tablespoons of chili powder, 5 teaspoons of paprika, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This was paprika. 4½ teaspoons of ground cumin. ground cumin. Brand names are something you don't have to concern yourself. Anything you can find at the grocery store, I'm sure, is just fine. 1, 2, 3, 4, and a half. Next comes our onion powder. 1 tablespoon of onion powder. Next, we use salt. 1 tablespoon of salt. This is one ingredient that for sure can be adapted to what your family preference is. As I've gotten older, I seem to be more sensitive to salt as far as taste-wise. So if I was making this for myself, I would probably cut the salt in half. You could possibly even go salt-free if you are on a low-sodium diet. So there's, you know, a lot of adaptability with this recipe. Those are the kind I really like. Okay, our next is 1 tablespoon of garlic powder. The final ingredient is ground red pepper. And for that, we use 1/8 of a teaspoon. That's another ingredient that you could definitely easily adapt to whatever your family's taste is. Some like it spicier than others. Now, once you do that, we put the lid on and we shake. A little mix like this, I've found, can also become a really nice gift. If you put it in a pretty jar, you know, and maybe wrap it with a label, put a sticker on there with the actual label of what it is, it makes a really nice gift. People seem to really appreciate that. See how nicely that blended up? Okay, so this is ready to go now for next time you want to make tacos or burritos or whatever. And you store this in the refrigerator in a nice tight container, and it's ready to go. Now, once you have this made, it's time to put together the actual taco meat. Now, I'm not going to actually do that today. I'm just going to tell you about it. The basic recipe calls for 1 pound of ground hamburger. Now, I, over the years, have deduced that you could actually be using ground pork, ground turkey, chicken, or venison, probably any kind of ground meat, depending on how exotic what kind of exotic meats you have access to, such as elk or moose, etc. To that, okay, you brown your ground meat until it's browned, and at that point I would recommend or highly suggest that you drain the fat off of that, put it back on the stove, and to that browned meat you're going to add 2 to 3 tablespoons of this mix, plus 2/3 of a cup of water. Now, you're going to stir that together and bring that to a boil. Once it starts to boil, you're going to reduce the heat to a simmer. And then you're going to let that simmer for about 10 minutes. And you're going to want to make sure you stir this occasionally. so it doesn't end up burning on you. So you're going to stir this for about 10 minutes with the main theory behind the whole thing is that you want that water to evaporate, or a lot of that moisture to evaporate. And once that process is completed, the meat is ready to go. It's ready for tacos or burritos, or possibly some kind of a taco hot dish, etc. Okay, thank you so much for watching my video today. Today, before we leave, I want to give special recognition to my cameraman and editor of all different videos that I have put on YouTube. He is my grandson, who is 12 years old. His name is Charlie, and he is kind of the inspiration behind starting this whole business here. So, thank you again, and hopefully I'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye.